In May of 1993, I was a 17-year-old high school senior, and I got to go to a party at my older brother's apartment. And I met a boy named Jason. And the first thing my brother said to me was, "No, don't." And then my brother's best friend looked at me and was like, "Jamie, really don't." So I did. Jason asked me for my phone number, and I gave it to him. And it was weird because he was like sort of into me, and like I wasn't used to people who I was into being into me. So I was like, it's not going to go anywhere. So the next day I was leaving for my double shift at the ice cream parlor, and I changed the outgoing message on my answering machine, which at the time said, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, leave a message." I changed it. And it said, "Hi, I have a double at Scoops today, so if you have my number there, call me. If you want ice cream, come by. And if this is Jason, I am thoroughly impressed." And then I went to work. And back in 1993, you had to call your answering machine to see if you had any messages. And I did that a lot. And there were no messages. Until there was a message, and it said, "Hi, this is Jason. I guess you're thoroughly impressed." And I was. And that kicked off a 3-month summer relationship that was a disaster. It was like super intense and super tumultuous and really horrible, but also really wonderful. And there was lots of fighting, maybe a little bit of cheating. I didn't cheat. That was not me. And around the end of August, we had another fight. And I said, "Listen, I'm not going to spend my last 2 weeks before college fighting with you. So I think we're done." And he said, "What do you mean? You're not like transferring back after the first semester?" I was like, "No, did I say I was transferring back after the first semester? I'm going to college. I have a scholarship. I'm going to go do all the things." So then we took another 2 years to break up. And when I say we took 2 years to break up, we broke up that day and then like took 2 years to like make it final. Those 2 years were also tumultuous and crazy and really, really bad. Jason and I finally broke it off 2 years later, and we stopped talking. He was still friends with my brother and still friends with my brother's best friend. And we didn't really see or talk to each other. There was a house fire in Jason's house like maybe 10 years ago, and there was a big GoFundMe campaign, and I contributed to it, of course, and I told my brother, and I told my brother's best friend, like, give him my number if he needs anything. Like, I'm happy to help out. Like, it's fine. And he never called, and I assumed that meant enough. Like, we're good. Don't worry about it. It's in the past. And then in the summer of 2022, my brother told me that Jason had cancer. And it had been close to 30 years since we spoke, but I knew that he wasn't really interested in having me reach out because he hadn't, gotten in touch after the fire. But as the months wore on, I think it was March of 2022, I started to have really intense dreams about Jason, really realistic, intense dreams. And I called one of my friends from back in the day, not my brother and not my brother's best friend, and said, like, "What do you think I should do?" And she's like, "You need to call him." I said, "I think you're right." So I didn't call because I didn't want to, but I got the number, not from my brother, who wouldn't give it to me, but my brother's best friend, who I bullied into it. And I took a picture of me with my cat, and I said, "Hi, it's Jamie. This is Buddy. We say fuck cancer. How are you?" And after that, Jason and I texted every other day for about 3 months. I was able to take my kids to go meet him in the summer of 2022. And 2 weeks later, he died. And I became unhinged in a way that really surprised me. I mean, We were together for 3 months in 1993. Sure, it took us 2 years to break up, but like, come on. But I became like unhinged, and I was out on the rooftop of Telus one night talking to a friend, and he looked at me and he goes, I think you need like a professional. Like I got nothing for you right now. And I was like, oh, I think you're right. So I called my old therapist who I hadn't seen in a while, and I was like, my ex-boyfriend from 1993 died, and I think I need to come see you. She's like, sure, yeah, come on in. And so we talked about like things like ambiguous grief and like, what happens when someone you were once very close to, but we're not close to, and then we're close to again, passes away. And she helped, but then I did what I always do in these moments, and I wrote about it. And I was lucky enough to have the piece picked up by today.com. Now, I've been published in the New York Times, Baltimore Sun, Washington Post, Teen Vogue, HuffPost. Today.com published that story, and I hear from women on a regular basis more than any other story I have written or either of my 2 books, that they knew what I was feeling and nobody else understood them either. And so I learned a lot from my 3-month relationship to 2-year-long breakup from Jason. I learned a lot. I owe a lot to him. But what I learned from his death is how important it is to acknowledge the feelings we're feeling, no matter how unhinged they seem, to get help when we need it, and to do what we're all doing here tonight, which is sharing our stories, because there are people who need to hear them. Thank you.